It's supper time with Meat and Potatoes, a podcast by Embrace, where your journey is our journey.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My brothers, sisters, friends, and family, everybody tuning in to the podcast here. Welcome back to another wonderful episode of Meat and Potatoes. Today, episode 2 of season number 3. We're going to be getting into a very heavy topic, something heavy on the eyes, the heart, and the mind in regards about the experiences that a revert, convert, first generation, however you want to distinguish yourself, Muslim, may have regarding with this transition to the faith to Islam, the challenges that pose regarding funeral practices or praying over a family member who may or maybe has not accepted the path of Islam. So in this regard, we're going to first state that however, we are brothers who love the deen, we love learning, and we have the scholarly love and the love for scholarly practices. We are not scholars ourselves. Always double check information and always do your research, but we will be bringing our own experiences, what we have learned to the situation, and also maybe some personal reflections regarding that. With that, let me go ahead and introduce the table that we have here. As usual, my beloved, wonderful brothers. First and foremost, the wonderful, kind, persevering, thoughtful, and intelligent brother Kenneth. First, Assalamu alaikum, brother Kenneth.
Wa alaikum assalam, my beloved, handsome, wonderful, exceptional, and persevering brother Daniel.
MashaAllah. Always glad to see you, brother Kenneth, and thank you for joining us today. Going around the table still, brother. I can't just start strong and not do the same. So the intelligent, magnificent, fantastic, pious and kind brother Abdul Rashid. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. May Allah make everything you said about me be true.
I mean, and 10 times full too. I mean, alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
And last but most certainly not least, the fantastic, talented, magnificent brother Rashid bin Qadir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to you and all of our listeners out there.
I forgot to mention humble, but that's there too. Alhamdulillah. But alhamdulillah, it's good that we're on good spirits, inshallah, for where we're going to be starting here. Because again, like I said, this may be a heavy topic here. I'm going to be discussing in regards about funeral practices and maybe the separation of loss that happens as, again, Muslims who we come into the faith, we're accepting a different faith, and there is an understanding in Muslim culture, inside the Quran, inside of the Hadiths, one way or another about how one can or should pray for somebody who may or may not have accepted the path of Islam. And of course, at the end of our lives, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who knows best. He knows of which religion we lie upon, and it is upon those angels who are going to be testing that person in the grave of it's that account that's going to matter. I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala count us amongst those who say the correct statements, who die upon Islam, or more importantly, die with La ilaha illallah upon our lips or upon our tongue, right before our passing, so that we are amongst the successful in the hereafter. But going around the table first, let's start with brother Kenneth, inshallah. Now, brother Kenneth, if you'd like, I'd like to start us off with the appetizer on your part here regarding when it comes to the experience on a Muslim, for a Muslim convert, revert, or first generation Muslim, the experiences of how to handling with grief, or deal with this topic of praying for somebody in the family who has, or family or friend even, who has passed outside the fold of Islam. Bismillah.
Right. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wassalat wassalam ala rasulullah. Oh man. So this is, as you mentioned, Brother Daniel, a very heavy topic. And I think it's also a very unique topic for those of us who converted to Islam, because unlike perhaps many of our raised Muslim brothers and sisters who are part of a family that have been Muslim for generations, for those of us who converted to Islam, basically a majority of our family members are probably non-Muslims, right? Hence why you mentioned first generation as a good way of kind of discussing a convert in many cases. So it's a very unique issue for us. But first, I kind of want to highlight what exactly is the ruling regarding praying for non-Muslim family and friends. And so we find this in Surah Tawbah, the chapter of repentance, verse 113, where Allah says, after saying, it is not proper for the Prophet and those who believe to ask Allah's forgiveness for the disbelievers, even though they be of kin, after it has become clear to them that they are the dwellers of the fire, dying in a state of disbelief. So first and foremost, as we know, when someone passes away, we cannot know what is in their hearts, right? We cannot fully know whether or not they had belief or they had disbelief. Only Allah knows. Hence why it's improper for us to say whether someone is in paradise or in the hellfire. Only Allah knows, right? Unless Allah has specifically told us a certain person is in paradise or hellfire, we can't know. But what Allah is saying here is if it is apparent to us, if it is apparent that someone has died in a state of disbelief, died in a state of rejecting Allah and His Messenger, it is improper for us to pray for their forgiveness, right? And as a convert to Islam, this can be a hard pill to swallow, right? Because, of course, whenever any of us loses a family member, we always have that hope for their forgiveness, that hope for their repentance, that hope that we can be reunited with them in paradise, right? And for those of us who have non-Muslim family members and who die in a state of disbelief, we don't have that hope, right? Like many of our raised Muslim brothers and sisters, when they lose a family member who is also Muslim, alhamdulillah, they have that hope that inshallah, they'll be reunited in paradise, they'll be reunited in the Jannah, and they pray for their family members' forgiveness and are encouraged to pray for their forgiveness, right? They have that hope. But for those of us who lose a non-Muslim family member, whether it's a brother, sister, cousin, parent, I lost my father 3 years ago, 3 years ago, and we don't have that level of hope. We don't have that hope that inshallah they will be in Jannah. There's always that small possibility, because again, we don't know what's in their hearts, but it is apparent to us that they died in a state of disbelief, and so we don't have that same hope, and so it can be very difficult for us as converts, because for us it truly feels like a goodbye. It truly feels like departing from them forever, versus losing a Muslim family member to where inshallah one day you can be reunited. We don't have that same level of hope, so it can be very difficult, especially when we have especially when we're told may Allah forgive them, may Allah grant them paradise. It's like we know that technically you can't say that, because we can't ask for their forgiveness, because they passed as disbelievers. So it can even be somewhat painful sometimes, even if someone's saying it they're saying it with sincerity, they're saying it with goodness and love, and may Allah reward them for that love. But it's like it can be painful to hear that, because deep in your heart they died as a disbeliever. So I can't even ask for that, and so it can be very difficult for us to deal with, right? And so I think first and foremost is we had to appreciate. It's important for us to kind of appreciate that unique challenge that many of us converts go through, is having that sense of of grief that is really unique, I think, for those of us in that position.
Brother Kenneth coming out strong with skipping the appetizer and going right for the main course, but uh, definitely hitting really a lot of the main points in regards about this topic. It is a difficulty, it is a challenge, it is hope, but it's also this fear and this wanting that uh, you know uh, despite the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for our parents, those who have raised us, those who have loved us, to be admitted into that mercy that we've been admitted to by accepting Islam. But um, now, kind of passing along to Brother Abdul Rashid, could you share your experiences with this topic and the difficulties that it has given you?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, this is a very troubling reality for myself because I'm the only Muslim in my family. I have 3 beautiful kids and a lovely wife, and my 84-year-old mother is still here, breathing and living. May Allah make it easy for her. But they're all non-Muslim, so if any one of them dies, it's troubling that I shouldn't, and I won't be able to pray for them. There'll be no janazah for them. They will just be buried like they want to be buried as non-believers. And it's very troubling. Like Brother Kenneth said, our born Muslim brothers and sisters, they don't have to deal with this. No matter in what state they lose their loved one, whether they were practicing or non-practicing. If they were born Muslims, they're going to have a janazah, and you can pray for them and hope that Allah will forgive them. And so we don't have that same hope, like Brother Kenneth said. I mean, my only hope is that Allah says His mercy will outweigh His wrath, right? So I pray that would be the case for all my non-Muslim family and friends who die in disbelief. It's probably one of the verses I don't want to say I skip over, but I don't dwell on too much because it's saddening, right? And I'm pretty sure I haven't told most of my family that isn't necessarily the case. One, because it's going to invoke emotion, and it's going to turn into an argument about the legitimacy of Islam, and then I have to go through this whole defense mode, and I'm not ready for that. But I think what it should do for us, it should encourage us and motivate us to perform better dawah to our family and friends, to present to them the beauty of this religion in hopes that they will convert and they'll come over to the fold of Islam. Obviously, as Muslims, we know you and I, we don't make Muslims, it's only Allah. It's by Allah's will. But so, I try to rely heavily on the mercy of Allah when I think about this, and when I think about losing my non-Muslim family and friends. And so, I just, we need to pray for them endlessly while they're still here, and pray that they come to Islam, so we don't have to deal with this subject when they pass. So Allah knows best.
Alhamdulillah. And a great perspective as well, Brother Abdul Rashid. And I mean, the reality is daunting, and it's something that we don't want to, sweep it under the rug and not deal with it until it comes by. But it is a reality that we have to face, that somebody who's born Muslim doesn't have to deal with, or the challenges that poses. But on to you, Brother Rashid bin Qadir. What were your experiences like, and what do you have to share? What wisdoms can you bring to this table, inshallah?
Bismillah. I would have to say, from a real to keep it real for myself, I've over the last 10 years have had many funerals, many deaths within the family. And it's just my dad and 2 siblings that are Muslim. So like most of you out there that are listening and on this podcast right now, a lot of them are there. A lot of them are not Muslim. We're one of the rare Muslims within our families. And therefore, this is, like you guys said, is a troubling issue to face and to deal with and to talk about. But I think a lot of it comes down to education. And like Ken's quoted from the Quran, that we as Muslims cannot pray for forgiveness if we know someone is a non-believer. But I personally don't know if someone is a non-believer. That's Allah's call. That's way above my pay grade to know if someone is a disbeliever. Unless they outwardly tell me that, then that's another thing. And it's Allah and Allah alone who decides who's going to go to hellfire, going to go to paradise. So I do want to lean a lot into Allah's mercy on that thing. And as people are going to talk about further today, the Prophet ﷺ had Abu Talib, who was a non-believer and was an outward non-believer, and he was a very close friend, not only uncle, but a friend to the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet did not even attend his funeral. So this brings in a thing for me to think about. We as far as non-Muslims, they have the funeral, they have the burial, and then you have a reception kind of deal afterwards. So there's a difference of opinion of those three things, and there may be more levels to it, but there's a difference of opinion in certain of those areas of what we can attend to, what we can attend, and what we cannot attend. So some say you can go to the wake, which is beforehand, but you can't go to the funeral or the burial. But if there's an event afterwards, you can go to that and you can say words of condolences at that particular point. So there's different, so I encourage everyone to read and talk to your sheikh and find out what the best way is for it. And I will have to say, and I'm still growing in my deen. I'm still trying to learn more about this deen and trying to become stronger in my deen. I know for me personally, it would be very troubling and difficult for me not to attend a funeral. For instance, the last one was my aunt, right? This is the woman who changed my mom's diapers, who changed my diapers, who was my babysitter, who was my confidant, who was everything in the world to me out next to my mom. And she passed away of an illness. And how would it be if I didn't go to her wake, if I didn't go to her funeral, if I didn't go to her burial, if I didn't go to the event that takes place after the funeral? How would it be when I'm trying to keep relations with kith and kin? I'm trying my best to do that. And to not show up at that event may cause more harm than good. I'm still weak, and I expect people here and people listening to have a difference of opinion. And alhamdulillah, that's fine. We're all growing and to be stronger in this religion. But I do know clearly that I cannot pray for forgiveness for someone who is outwardly professed that they are not a Muslim. And I know the Prophet ﷺ did not go to Abu Talib's funeral, and those are true facts. But again, to not attend those events for me would be very difficult, and may Allah make me stronger and grant me guidance as I walk down this path.
So real quick, and I'm sorry, Brother Dan, I know that I'm going out of tune here because we're supposed to go around the dinner table. But I'm just gonna pull that fork off real quick just to kind of piggyback. I think Brother Rashid made a very important point.
I'll use my hands, inshallah. That's sunnah, right? So
there
no
you
problem.
Go. There you go. Well, I'm just gonna tie your hands behind your back for a minute, then, and then I'll untie them.
God.
SubhanAllah.
What's your point, Brother Kenneth?
Yeah, so just because Brother Rashid made a very powerful point, and how not going to a funeral can do more harm than good, especially causing strife amongst family members. I want to kind of highlight what I was told by scholars whom I trust and who are also converts. And we've been done episodes like this in other Embrace work we call Embrace Q and Convert Q&A. We talked about this, and that is, when it comes to attending funerals, as so long as there are no religious practices within the funeral, then it's okay. It's only the religious aspects of a funeral that become problematic for us to attend. So, for example, if the funeral has like a particular prayer involved or has some type of religious practice involved, then we, need to take a step back. But if a funeral is something that is generally secular, which many funerals today are, where you just go in, is like Brother Rashid mentioned, it's a wake where you sit down, you share some words of about the person, your memories, and just kind of joining a reception, then it's halal. It's okay. It's only the religious aspects of the funeral that we need um to avoid. But I think it is especially important to give ourselves that closure, right? Not only for the sake of keeping family ties, but since we don't have that same level of hope of reuniting with them as our Muslim counterparts might, that's our opportunity to get that closure, right? And so I think it's important to kind of find those levels of permissibility to where we can have that opportunity to have that closure and grieve with our fellow family members.
Absolutely. And well, to combine the topics of Brother Rashid as well as for you, Brother Kenneth. So I hope that I'm the most recent one, but my father this year had recently passed away this past January 2023. And so we got on the topic in regards about the point of after the point of passing, funeral processes and whatnot. But maybe one of the experiences too that born Muslims or Muslims born or people born into a Muslim family may not experience too is that coming around to somebody when they're on their last limb, their deathbed, the point of, they know and that it may be one of the last times you wind up seeing that person, and luckily you're able to do that. But I had the experience of sitting next to my father, to speak to him and ask him, Father, so the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is greater than anything that we can perceive. It's he is our creator, he's our sustainer, everything that has been granted from him, even to the point that a life that is full of sin or improperness can be forgiven by him in a moment's notice, and it matters not to him. And I even mentioned this hadith to my father, saying, O son of Adam, if you come to me saying La ilaha illallah, then even if there is a world full of sin, of disobedience, or of improperness, if you say La ilaha illallah, he will greet you and give you an equal amount of mercy for that. And anybody who comes to the fold of Islam is forgiven of all their past deeds. So I begged my father, for the last moment that I got to see him, to say La ilaha illallah. And the issue that always is in the back of my mind is that he was in a state that is always very questionable. He was on like morphine at the time, to the point where, very highly unlikely that maybe he couldn't even understand what I was saying, or but it's not the first and only time I ever mentioned it to him. I mean, I mentioned Islam to my family all the time. We try to live it so we can make that example, but it's always as equally as important for us to hold that example for ourselves as well as for our family members and whomever we love, to give that example so that they can look at you as a beacon of light, as an example, or have them question themselves. What is my purpose when I'm seeing this person who I love, who I admire, who I grew up with, this and that, or even my son or child, living this sort of life. Is there something I can take from that? And hopefully they'll ask you questions and open up the door for that. But that is, this is the reality of the convert, the revert, first generation Muslim, that there is this fear. And even though, our main fear is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to us is good, and it's up to him, his choice, for the first and foremost that we became Muslim, and also for whoever he decides to envelop into his mercy and accept as Muslim. That is for us to accept. But also in the same case, it is through his wisdom as to why he may or may not have brought somebody into the faith. But it's also somebody has to make that distinguished wanting to do so as well. You know, we have that every day. We wake up with that choice: do we want to be Muslim? And you know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala count us amongst those who are on until our dying breath. But that always, you know, that itches the back of the mind of the person who is concerned about those sorts of things, because they have that love and that concern. This is a love and a mercy from us to want love and mercy for the ones who are around us.
Right. It's
but
always
with
in
that-
the back of our minds. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, Brother Kenneth, go ahead and lead the conversation here, because we'll basically open it up here. You know, floor is open for your brothers regarding this topic, inshallah.
No, I just wanted to say, and I don't want to, you know, take up all the, you know, all the meal for myself, but I do think in a way, Brother Daniel, I think it's, you know, it's beautiful that you had that opportunity to sit down with your father and, you know, share with him that message, right? In itself, you know, with me, with my father's death was a surprise, right? It wasn't like, you know, he was on his deathbed and we knew it was coming. He had surgery. The surgery, to my knowledge, went well. The next thing I know, I get a phone call from my brother at 4:00 in the morning. Hey, you know, Dad died, and I'm just, what? It was like a complete surprise. It came out of nowhere for me. And death comes when it comes, right? There are times where you have time to prepare yourself. There are times where it comes out of nowhere. And like what you said, Brother Daniel, it's always going to be in the back of our minds as converts. Is like, you know, is my family member going to embrace Islam, or, you know, am I ever going to be able to get through to them? That's always in the back of our minds, right? And it comes out of a place of love and mercy, like you said. But what I kind of wanted to quickly highlight is I think we should also spend some time talking about, okay, how do we understand that grief is there? We understand that grief is very unique to the convert experience, but so how do we deal with that grief, right? And I think one point Brother Daniel mentioned is kind of highlights a solution is it's hard, right? There's no way I think go about this to saying we can deal with it without feeling any sense of pain or sense of loss. You're gonna go through that, but it's understanding, I think, a lot that it's ultimately up to Allah, and Allah is the most wise, and having that faith and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I kind of wanted to quickly talk about, perhaps, you know, because I think one question maybe people may ask, maybe even us converts may ask, is why am I not allowed to ask for forgiveness? Why would Allah take that away from me? And I think it just goes back into trusting and understanding and Allah's power and His majesty over us, right? Because we know that in another verse, Allah says that you know, if so, anyone who says La ilaha illallah, you know, Allah can forgive them, but He will not forgive the one who associates partners with Him or just believes in Him, right? So Allah has already made a ruling regarding that. And so whenever we are asking Allah to forgive something He has already explicitly said that He will not forgive, it is in a way, you know, going against Allah's ruling. And I think that's kind of maybe why Allah tells us it is improper for you to ask for forgiveness for this, because the ruling has already been dealt, right? Allah has already ruled that He will not forgive those who die with kufr, disbelief in their heart. So it just goes back to understanding our role and our relationship with Allah. We are Allah's creation and His servants, and He is the creator and our master. And so it just kind of goes back to understanding what our dynamic with Allah is. And, you know, through, I think, giving ourselves that understanding what that dynamic is, that pain will still be there, but I think can just kind of help bring us a sense of understanding, perhaps, as to why it is how it is. So I think first and foremost, just kind of focusing on a relationship with Allah, and just really developing that love and appreciation to our Creator can help give us some sense of closure, perhaps. Whenever we do lose a non-Muslim family member, the grief and the pain will still be there, but perhaps we can focus on the understanding part. And Allah, of course, knows best.
So so I think for me to understand that, we look in the Quran, the stories of the Qurans and the prophets. So I think about Prophet Noah, alayhi salam. When the flood came, he called to his son to come join him on the ark, and his son was like, "Nah, I'm gonna run up the mountain, I'm gonna be fine." And then he gets drowned, and Noah goes to Allah, asking him, he says, like, "That's my son, he's part of my family." And Allah says, "No, he wasn't of your family." So he drowned with the rest of the disbelievers. So you have to trust and rely on the qadr of Allah, the decree of Allah. And throughout the Quran, there are stories of the prophets who lost family members who weren't Muslim, who were deep in disbelief, and went against the prophets, their own family members, and they couldn't save them. And then, of course, like Brother Rashid, we talk about the prophet's uncle who helped him in his struggle, in his fight for Islam. But even when he died, he couldn't save him, right? So it's a hard pill to understand. But if you have that belief and you rely on Allah in totality, then you get over the grief and you accept it. I mean, I'm saying that now, but if any of my family's members die tomorrow, in the next minute or two, I'm gonna be distraught. Of course, I'm gonna be distraught, and I'm gonna ask Allah to forgive me, because for me, I feel like I'm not doing enough to help them, even though I know ultimately it's not up to me, right? But so you have to, it's hard. It's really hard, and I don't know if converts think about it a little. I know maybe because I'm getting older, I think about it more. But it's something that's always there. It's always at that surface level, and it's something we can't just get over. So we have to truly, truly believe in the mercy of Allah and hope and pray for our loved ones as much as we can while they're still here. And if they die in disbelief, then it's on Allah's mercy. And Allah knows best.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. And I completely agree with that. And I know one thing that, for me personally, that's helped me get through that grieving phase when someone passes away, be it Muslim or non-Muslim, is a general understanding of what happens when we die. Right, the soul being taken out of us, the soul being taken to us, or being questioned in the grave, the soul being with the birds, and us being in the grave as if it's only for a day and not forever. All those little pieces about the death process, for me personally, it helps me deal with death. It helps me to know, because if I know what's going on after a person dies, for whatever reason, that helps me get through my grieving process. And as the law warns us, don't wail forever or too long, to get through that process. And just knowing what the body and what's happening with that human being, and to get over it, that helps me to get over it. But again, that's just me. Everybody has a different way of grieving and dealing with it. But I think understanding and studying that whole process can be very, very helpful.
With that, I think we're cutting short for time here. So, Brother Kenneth, we'll bring it back to you here, inshallah, for our dessert round. What would you like to bring to the table as we go ahead and close, inshallah?
So I was inspired by Brother Abdul Rashid's chocolate chip cookies on the last episode. So I think I'm going to bring some homemade double chocolate chip cookies. Nice and creamy on the inside and warm and gooey. So that's what I'm bringing to the dessert this round. Another great way of dealing with grief is eating delicious food, as the saying goes. But just a couple of closing points I want to make. First and foremost, I think it's important to, again, allow yourself to grieve. Allow yourself to grieve. Give yourself that opportunity to grieve properly, right? We know the Prophet, peace be on him, he grieved when he lost Abu Talib. He grieved when he lost family. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel upset. So let yourself grieve. At the same time, there are limitations, right? We know that in the hadith we're told that like going over grieving can also be a bad sin in and of itself. Like, for example, it's like back in the cultural Arab practices, they would like slap themselves and just really go overboard and just really just lose their minds in their grief. You don't want to go that far. There's limitations, but let yourself go through the grieving process, right? The second point I want to make is again, while we cannot pray for our non-Muslim friends, family, and relatives forgiveness when they pass, we can pray all we want for them to be guided while they're alive. So I think making it a daily occurrence, always a lot to guide your family, to guide your friends to this path. Ultimately, it's up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is guided and who is not guided. But take advantage of that opportunity and pray for their guidance while you can. I know that brother Abdul Alim, he's not with us in this episode today, but I remember he lost his mother recently. But mashallah, she was actually she accepted Islam and was guided before she passed. So he was able to be blessed in that manner. So you never know who Allah will guide. So while you have the opportunity, ask Allah to guide them. Don't ever stop making dua.
MashaAllah, Brother Kenneth. Very sweet, very succulent, double chocolate.
Ooey gooey.
MashaAllah.
Ooey gooey gooey ooey.
Alhamdulillah. On that note, Brother Abdul Rashid, what's on the plate for your dessert?
So, in honor of my son coming home this weekend from college, and one of his favorite desserts is peach cobbler. Not mine, but his. So we're gonna have peach cobbler today.
I love
Fantastic.
peach cobbler.
And it's homemade for anyone asking.
Oh boy.
So yeah, I know we didn't get a chance to really discuss it, but for us converts who still live with family members who are non-Muslim, we want to be buried as Muslims, right? We want to be buried in the Islamic way. And so, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future. So we need to make sure when we convert, at some point we have we got a will, and or at least at the very least, let our family members know how we want to be treated. I've had this conversation with my wife, jokingly and then seriously. But I tell her that I want to be buried as a Muslim, and in this state, you have to be put in a box. I said I just need a simple box, a pine box. I'm shrouded. Throw me in the ground. You guys go about your business, and I'm good. None of this, being sitting around for weeks and days and all sorts of kind of stuff. And jokingly, it's haha funny, but these are the things we need to make sure we remind ourselves of, and remind our family because we don't want to be caught in a situation where you're a Muslim and you're treated like the others. So that's one. And then two, yeah. So this is a very sensitive subject. Grieve. Let them go through the grieving process. And we just gotta know that the Prophet, peace and blessing on him, he went through all of this with his family and his friends. So he's the best example. So we need to follow his example, and we can do it. So and Islam is about balance, and it's about keeping your ties of kinship. So there's ways to go to funerals of non-Muslims and still respect your religion and respect yourself. So we just need to be mindful of all that kind of thing. So know your religion and grieve and go as far as you feel comfortable in the funeral process. Because like your brother Kenneth said, if they die as a disbeliever, it really is goodbye. You're probably pretty sure you're not going to see them again, right? So do all you can do for them now. Obviously, make do it for them, like you said, and then Allah knows best.
Alhamdulillah. Of the Rashid, peach cobbler definitely tastes like reality, but that is one way of we do need to be serious. This
Absolutely,
life
absolutely,
is
absolutely.
Gotta
serious.
keep it real.
Mhm. Now passing along to Brother Rashid bin Qaldir. What a tasty notes do you have for us here, inshallah?
Well, in memory of the aunt that I was referring to earlier, she used to make two desserts that I absolutely loved. And one was a peanut butter cookie with creamy peanut butter, never the chunky peanut butter.
That's right. Never
Mm,
chunky.
that's
Never the
right.
chunky,
That's right.
the creamy peanut butter. And she used to make this pound cake with this pineapple glaze
Oh
on
yeah.
top and with the pineapple chunks. And oh, I miss you, Auntie.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so, those are things, those are two things she used to make, especially at my request. She couldn't tell her brother no. So, but if someone in your family passes away that is non-Muslim, even though we cannot pray for their forgiveness, we can still have kind thoughts of them and never forget them and never erase them from your mind, and just try to keep good thoughts about them. And they're always going to, the memories of their life and how they touched you should always stay with you. There's no harm in doing that. You don't have to just erase them and kick them to the curb or anything like that. So just try to keep them in your mind. And I'll add one other component. If someone in your family dies that is Muslim, continue to pray for them, because those du'as are going to be accepted. It's like my father, he passed away some years ago, but if I'm feeding somebody, I'll do it for him. If I'm doing Umrah, I'll try to do it for him, and I'll pray for a spacious grave for him, and all these things. So if you have a family member that is Muslim, definitely make dua and hard dua for them, meaning supplications or prayers on their behalf.
May Allah SWT accept all of them. I mean.
I mean.
So, alhamdulillah, a fantastic round of desserts here, really hitting different sort of topics here. As we were talking about family members and those who are close to us, the one dessert that comes to the back of my mind, my grandmother used to make these fantastic, they were milk tarts. I don't know how else to describe them or what they are, but it's one of the things during family gatherings that I would always ask for her to bring. So that's what I'm bringing to the table. Old Ruppelt's family recipe, inshallah. But
I'm gonna have to Google milk tart.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up.
Apparently they're super easy to make. It's basically like a custard tart, basically.
Oh, okay.
I guess it's just how one makes it. But inshallah, definitely a go-to thing. Anyway, we're talking in regards about being here and now for those who are closest to us, for those who have or may not have passed under the fold of Islam. Why are we, discussing about this too? It's also a reminder for ourselves. Every soul is going to taste death. That is the promise. That's the guarantee. Death and taxes. Alhamdulillah. The two guaranteed things inside of this life. And when one of the companions was asking in regards about death, to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ responded saying, "What have you prepared for?" So this is a good time for us, as we're seeing, why is it good for us to go to funerals? Because it reminds us we're only here for a time. This box, this hole, is all that we're going to be left with. All the money, all the fame, all the flashy things, all the beautiful visitations, all the whatever we've quote unquote amounted to is dust at the end of our lives. The only thing we keep with us is our deeds, our Islam and our deeds, alhamdulillah. So it's important that we recognize these moments and take advantage of it while we're here. Try to make the best of that, what we've been given in our abilities, our money, opportunities, our time. Time is the only thing we only really have. So let's heed our own advice and heed what's being presented in front of us to remind us that this is the time that we should be making the most use of our of what we've been given. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our efforts and what we do. May He increase us for every aspect of our deen. May He increase us in our iman. May He take us at the moment of our closest to Him. And allow us to die with the shahada on our lips and tongue. And with that, I want to thank all my wonderful brothers for joining again for a wonderful meal, a fantastic dessert, and a good time to, it can be hard to be vulnerable and to share these sorts of stories, to be emotional and whatnot. But alhamdulillah, this is a beautiful aspect to have and to be able to share that sort of that side of things. Whether sometimes the truth hurts, but always a blessing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us to be able to have more of these sorts of opportunities. But with that, we'll go ahead and close. Allahumma subhanaka bihamdi ashhadu wa la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my brothers.
Delicious dinner.
Meat and Potatoes is a podcast by Embrace. Embrace is a comprehensive convert care and empowerment organization dedicated to providing Muslim converts with social and educational spaces that encourage growth, shape their Islamic identity, and equip them with the tools they need for their lifetime journey. To learn more, visit us at www.embracereverts.org.